Good morning, everyone. I am David Millington, your host for today's webinar. I am the Director of Education for Next Level Purchasing Association, and I'm very happy to be here delivering this webinar to you all, and I'm honored. And thank you all for attending. With that said, please prepare for a fun time, and it's a very high-powered, critical topic as it relates to the procurement function and supply chain processes and how we could add value to our environments. So, the scope of today's webinar, we're going to focus on how to unlock the potential value creation processes of our organizations and to how we could effectively measure the magnitude of our current performance gap relative to our business requirements. And we'll be leveraging some critical tools to help us improve the procurement function as it relates to the value creation requirements of our organizations. And we will be able to focus on how we could align the procurement function with our customer requirements. So I start all of my webinars focusing on the underpinning of our profession, and that is our mandate, our core purpose, which is to manage spend, support operations, and protect our organizations from risk. So this is our core mandate, and it's very important as procurement professionals, supply chain leaders, that we manage all of our day-to-day activities with a critical point of reference, which is this mandate, our mission. And we assure that there's alignment with all of the other processes. So we're not silo-focused, and we don't operate in silos, because this ultimately will be very counterproductive. So, value creation exists in a context of intense pressure. There are many critical forces that bear down on our supply chains. There are socio-demographic factors, there are ecological factors, there are economic impacts, there's political disruption, there are competitive forces bearing down on our supply chains, and there are shifts in customer taste. The modern customer wants things cheaper, better, faster. And there's a demand of the modern customer for very eco-friendly products. So we have to assure that our supply chains are lean and trim and efficient and could facilitate those critical requirements. So in this context, this essentially is the landscape in which our business environments function. So the better we are at understanding and going through the process of what we call environmental scanning our environments for what trends exist. And we must be able to answer three critical questions as far as these trends are concerned: the socio-demographic impacts, the ecological impacts, the economic factors that affect our supply chain capability and processes. We see that there are disruptive technologies in place now: big data analytics, robotics, blockchain, artificial intelligence, machine learning. What does this mean? We see now the evolving trade wars, and these would have, for sure, critical impacts and severe impacts and potential disruption to our supply chains. So we must be aware. And in these critical dimensions in which value creation must be realized, we have to answer three fundamental questions. What is the magnitude of these trends? how are our organizations positioned to deal with these trends? And thirdly, what are our strategies to mitigate any risk that arise relative to these trends? Or how can we capitalize on any potential opportunities that exist as far as these trends are concerned? So the SPSM, SPSM2, and SPSM3 skill sets position procurement professionals to effectively understand and to navigate the pressures of the modern business landscape. So the word value. What does value mean to customers? What is value to a business? And why do businesses exist? So I'd like us to stop for a minute. I would like us to stop for a minute and reflect on these three critical parameters, because they would affect the way we have to interact as procurement professionals. I always say that businesses exist for one purpose, and that is to create value for our customers. According to various supply chain and lean management experts, value has three components. One, there's a conversion from one stage to the next, from raw material inputs that reach our conversion or manufacturing processes that are converted into useful products and services. So there's a transformation from one stage to the next. And all associated activities in the supply chain are done right the first time. And thirdly, our customers or end users, internally and externally, are willing to pay for the outputs of those activities. So again, value has three components. There's a physical transformation from raw materials or inputs from one stage to the next. All of the activities are done right the first time. So essentially, our processes have a high degree of what we call first pass yield. And our customers, the end users of our products and services, are willing to pay for those products and services. So this is the essentially the underpinning of how we are to manage our procurement function effectively. Again, what do the customers really want? The modern customer, they want products and services cheaper, they want it better, and they want it faster. But then if we examine, if I may, this is what we call it, the triple constraint. If we spend time engineering quality into a product, the more time we spend engineering quality into a product, we just consume time, and time costs money. So, or if we rush the production of products and services, we run the risk of errors, correct? So if we run the risk of errors, then we have a low first pass yield. So products would have to meet conformance on the second or the third pass, and that costs money. So that means, in theory, those products and services would not be cheaper. So if the customers require that they want things cheaper, better, and faster, how do we deal with that constraint? And we're going to get to that later on. But it's very, very important that we understand, as procurement professionals, the environment in which we exist, and we understand the customer mindset. So one of the very important tools that we could leverage to understand the customer mindset and how to prioritize our activities and how to effectively select suppliers who are here for what? Why do we interact with suppliers? What is the core purpose of our vendors and suppliers? To give us what? The critical inputs that we need for what? That we need for conversion processes to do what? to create usable, fit-for-use products and services. So I always say there are many variables in our environments, and we have to understand that every variable does not have the same degree of importance to our internal customers and our external customers. And the better that we are at understanding our customer requirements, the better we will be at developing our procurement function framework and executing our functions. So the better we understand our customer requirements, the better we will be at selecting suppliers who are responsible for meeting those requirements. So this customer requirements matrix is a very, very important tool so that we could understand and prioritize the requirements of our customers. So for example, this process, we see here for this process, which is a soup serve process. Okay, so we see on the far left, right here, we see the output, okay, is the service of one soup. Then the next column here, we see the quality characteristics. So we see timeliness, we see warmness of service, we see quality of product, we see they want the correct product, they want the product done correctly the first time. Remember, it's done right the first time, and they want the product at the right temperature. So they want the soup delivered quickly, they want it with a high quality, they want it with a warmness of service. Okay, so they want a responsive, caring customer service, and they want to make sure that their product is correct. We do it right the first time. Don't waste their time. Okay, so in this environment, these are the critical requirements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've seen many organizations sort of dictate what or they make decisions based on what they think the customer needs. And this is erroneous methodology. We would be better off as leaders, business leaders, if we capture the voice of the customer and ask the customers what they want, how they want their products and services delivered, and what is important to them. So from this matrix, right, from understanding, if we look at this column here, importance to customers. So we asked them, of these 3 things that you customers have identified as important elements. Now, in this product, there could be up to 30 different requirements. But in this situation, the customers have identified 5 that are the most important. And then on top of that, they prioritize them. So timeliness, on a scale of 1 to 10, is important, right? All of these are critical here. Then we look at the current performance of the process, and we see that in timeliness, the current performance is 4 out of 10. So there's a gap of 6. So in terms of improving this process, timeliness is the first priority, and the top priority in terms of how to meet the customer expectations. And here we see by asking the customers and capturing the voice, we see here the critical requirements. Okay, so for timeliness, they want to come on the line and they want to be served their soup within 30 seconds. Okay, in terms of warmth of service, they want a genuine smile, polite customer service. In terms of the quality of the product, they want great taste and consistency. In terms of the accuracy of giving them the right product, the right flavor, consistently, they want 100% accuracy. And we see here that the process is currently performing at 8 out of 10. So there's a gap of 2, and this scores a 20. So the most critical requirement that needs to be improved on is timeliness. So this is a very, very, very important tool that I've used over the years to really understand the customer needs and requirements. If we understand this and we position our supply chains to deliver on these parameters by capturing the voice of the customer, then all of the activities in our environments would meet customer requirements. We would have a low total cost of ownership, and we have an effective supply chain. So, as far as the procurement mandate is concerned of managing spend, supporting operations, and protecting organizations from risk. So we're going to focus on these three parameters here. Now, in terms of managing spend, one of the best ways that as procurement professionals we could bring value to our businesses and value to our supply chain is by planning. You know, the old adage, if we fail to plan, we plan to fail. So to formulate an effective buying plan year on year with a good forecast, a robust forecast, with a projection of the demand requirements, it's very important. And to do the necessary market analysis and to assess if there would be any potential disruption in the supply chain in terms of availability of the raw materials, very important. Then the process, to assure and to examine our processes, how well are our procurement processes executing our functions? What are our current process capabilities? What is the process capability of our suppliers? Very important. Our suppliers, what are the defect rate? So if we procure X amount of raw materials per year from a particular supplier at a certain price, and the supplier delivers 20% defects. So on one hand, we would list a certain savings level, but then only 80% of the product or the raw material comes in, right, the way it's supposed to come in. So if that happens, whatever the cost of poor quality related to having a supplier with a 20% defect rate has to be driven against or deducted from the savings that we listed. So it's very important that we understand our processes as procurement professionals, how capable the processes are. If our processes are broken and we are ordering the wrong quantities, we place orders late, we order the wrong items, so our processes are broken, there are costs associated with that. So we could contract a certain raw materials at a certain price point, but then our processes are broken, and there's a cost to that. Everything that's broken in a supply chain is a system. So any broken part of a supply chain, of a procurement function, of a manufacturing process, of a logistics function, of our suppliers, any piece that's broken, there's a cost. So we have to understand as part of our buying plan is to make sure that we have the necessary skills assets. So essentially, if you want to transform any environment, again, we focus on our mandate. So we manage by purpose and by vision. We assure that we have the right people doing the right things at the right time. We ensure that those procurement professionals have the right skills, that we understand and we measure and we determine the skills gaps that exist, and we address them to close the skills gap. Okay, we assure that we have the right technology and the right processes to execute our functions. We ensure that we have robust rewards and recognition programs. So we create a culture where people are inspired to work and to innovate. And we hold each other accountable. So these are what we call, according to the latest research and change management and transformation, this is what we call the system levers or the critical cogs of change and transformation. Okay, so vision, mission, skills, the right people, process, accountability, rewards, and recognition. If any one of these parameters are broken, we're going to have problems. So if you want to bring value to the procurement function, and by doing this, it would enable the other processes to create value for our end users. We have to understand the supply chain function and the procurement function from a system standpoint. And we have to assure that we set targets and goals in our buying plan. We set those savings targets, and we assure that they're smart, they're realistic targets, and they're achievable, and we have the right skills. So in terms of supporting operations, which is another part of our mandate, okay, so we can't look at the mandate in silo. They have to work in synergy. They have to work in tandem. Okay, how do we measure the procurement function's contribution to the value creation? So in order to do this effectively, my friends, we have to look at the supply chain as a system. So this system essentially exists of suppliers who provide us with the inputs. Those inputs, again, are converted through our, if we have a service sector, the conversion processes to convert those inputs into useful services. If we have a if we're in a manufacturing space, then we have the raw material inputs, which are converted by our production or our manufacturing processes to create useful products. So the suppliers give us the critical inputs, they go through the conversion processes, and then we have the outputs. SIPOC. Supplier, input, process, output, customers. So if we look at things from this standpoint, from this angle, then we would get a very, very holistic, interactive view of how the supply chain functions and how the synergies flow up and downstream in our value streams. So these suppliers are here for what? To be responsive, to be capable, to be innovative, and we're going to touch on that innovation, and they have to be aligned to our strategic objectives. They have to deliver on a consistent basis the products at the agreed price, at the right price points. So they have to be able to procure and manufacture their materials that they ship to us at the right price points, consistently with the right quality and quantities all of the time. Internally, we have to, as procurement professionals, enable our internal processes to effectively convert those raw materials without defects. So there has to be a degree of collaboration. So now, caveat number one, and usually I give the caveats at the end, but I'm starting off with a caveat. I have seen in my years of procurement where procurement professionals focus on price, and we beat up the suppliers. That's all we're concerned about, price, okay? We don't collaborate. We don't look for opportunities in the supply chain we don't view our suppliers as partners, and we don't partner with the end user, our customers. So we operate in silos, and we don't collaborate internally. Okay, we just focus on price, getting the cheapest price. But this is a very, very, very short-sighted view. And it is proven that the best procurement and supply chain functions are those that are best able to collaborate upstream and downstream, internally and externally. So we have to be able to, number one, to have an effective and robust mechanism to select our suppliers using effective criteria. And those criteria have to be based on what? The customer requirements matrix. So it must be integrated into that. Okay, so the suppliers have to be able to deliver on our customer requirements. So those have to be in the critical criteria. And then there are the business requirements. So this whole matter, the whole affair of being aligned with the strategic objectives of organizations, which is for what? To create value for our customers. Okay, so we have to have a robust supplier selection matrix, and we have to collaborate. I've seen cases where procurement professionals have gone upstream because they realized that their conversion processes are broken. So they went upstream to collaborate, and they noticed that their suppliers, their processes are world-class. Could you help me? So instead of wasting time or spending time, solely focus on price, right? I've seen this where procurement professionals have gone upstream and asked the suppliers to help them in their conversion processes. And this created what? Higher first pass yield, better products, customers that are happy, and it brought down the total cost of ownership. So the most critical metric in procurement that we have to leverage if we want to realize value for our businesses is the total cost of ownership. So you have price, okay, we get price, okay, a certain price point. But again, if we have a high defect rate and we have late deliveries, now imagine we have a supplier, it comes in at the right price point, okay, it comes in, it's cheap, relatively cheap. Then the quality of the product is great, but he's always late. And every time that supplier is late, the production line is held up. And I've been in environments where you have 200 people in the production line. Now imagine those folks over there waiting for the materials to come in. Or it's the right price point, the right quality, but they ship the wrong quantities. So there's a delay on the production line. And worse yet, we can't fulfill the orders because it doesn't make sense that, maybe the supplier is too far away and it's not practical to wait because there's a certain timeline. Now the logistics function is impacted and the customer is upset and you have loss of sale and loss of business, right? Cheap supplier, right? We got the right price point, but what was the total cost of ownership? What was the total cost of doing business with that supplier? So it is quite possible we could pay 98 cents a unit from one supplier who has a 99.9% first pass yield, always on time, delivers the right quantities, has very, 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 very capable processes, or we have chosen to go with a supplier that came in at 94 cents instead of 96 cents. We went with that supplier, and guess what? It's always late, shipping the wrong stuff, high defect rate. So it is quite possible that at 94 cents per unit supplier could cost over $1, way over $1, and that is the total cost of ownership. So that's a critical caveat. Number one, select the right suppliers. Number two, collaborate. Look for ways and to improve the supply chain and reduce cost. Collaborate with them, partner with them. Don't beat them up and make them where they become fiscally dysfunctional. They don't, in the long run, it's not going to serve you well. So this is one way that we create value for our customers. One critical metric, total cost of ownership. So in terms of the SIPOC methodology, as they say, Y is a function of the X's, right? And the X's are what we call the variables in an environment. And this is just an example of a pizza chain, okay? So we see here the suppliers, and this is, again, the SIPOC methodology, and we see the suppliers here, okay? And then we have the process steps. And we have what we call the input X's or the input variables in the environment. And we have the process X's or the process variables in the environment. So the conversion by these processes or the interaction of these input variables with these process variables yield a certain output or outcome. In this case, great tasting pizza on time. Okay? So Y is a function of X. So if we look internally into our functions, our supply chain, our processes, and we run this SIPOC methodology, and we analyze all of the inputs. For example, we see here ingredients. If you look at where my cursor is here, ingredients. If these ingredients are defective, and all of the input variables are world class, and the process is world class, but the ingredients are defective, guess what? You're going to have a defective output. Right? So imagine if you got boxes, cheap boxes, because you got a cheap price, but the quality is no good. So we deliver the pizza, and we get to the door, and you imagine, right? The whole thing falls apart, right? So now, guess what? The customer may never order again. Okay, the delivery guy has to go all the way back. Okay, so that whole all those activities to get to the customer is not going to pay for that. So you have to go all the way back. And the customer said, you know what? I want my order. And I want it for free. Right? So now you have to go and make it again and ship it back to him. This is what we call spaghetti, zigzagging all over the place like this. And what's the cost of that? So all of that, and what did we get? $0. $0. And in the age of social media, we know how this could be unforgiving. So imagine. So my friends, look at things from a systems thinking perspective. Look at things from a holistic view, right? And focus on all of the variables that exist in your environments if you want to be valuable to your organizations, and you want to link the procurement function with the value creation processes of your organizations. Look at things holistically. Analyze them. Leverage the SIPOC methodology. Look at all of your inputs and see which of these items here have procurement written over them, and make sure that they're 100% world class, at the right price point, delivered in the right quantities at the right time. And and I said collaborate and enable the other functions, enable them to make sure their inputs are correct, then you'll have a world-class output. And if you have a world-class output, that means you have a world-class product or service, because that's why we're here. And if you do that, the customers, your net promoter score would be through the roof. And this is one of the most critical modern metrics. The extent to which people would refer others to your product, and they talk about your product. Delivery is good, the quality is good, and they're consistent. And they're quick. Very important. So this is just another variation here of a chart that I prepared for the SIPOC methodology. And this takes all of the process steps, and it looks at the value-adding steps, right? This webinar is about value and value creation and value add. It's done right the first time. There's a transformation from one stage to the next. If you look at this process here, you can see from step 1 to step 2, there's a transformation. Okay? You receive the order, you open the soup pot, you pull the soup cup, you fill the soup cup, you put a lid on it. Okay, so you see the stages of value creation, and you see here the time consumed by each step. And if you look at where you have the average labor rate, you would see that you're able to cost, what's the cost of executing each step. And then if you look at this, the reality, my friends, is that in order to do something cheaper, better, and faster, focus on waste. Focus on the unnecessary transportation in your organizations and how the procurement and supply chain function impacts that or could impact that. Unnecessary motion, unnecessary over-processing, overproduction, defects every time you generate a defect, and the underutilization of skills. So if we're able to work with our peers and collaborate with them to reveal these dimensions, the dimensions of waste, which, according to the experts, the average company operates at a 60% waste level. So in other words, another way of saying is that of the activities that exist in a typical business environment, on average, are 60% non-value added waste. They don't add value. And on average, only about 10% of the activities that we do actually add value. It's done right the first time. There's actual work of the transformation from one stage to the next, and the customer is willing to pay for it. How many times have we gone to a coffee shop and we order coffee? Right? You order your coffee, and then, oh, the guy's like, wait a minute, hold on a minute, I have to run downstairs to get milk. Right? It's not at point of use. He ran out. Then he comes upstairs. Oh, I forgot coffee. Hold on a minute. I have to go downstairs. I get coffee. Look at the distance that he traveled. Look at the time he's wasting. The line is building up. Now the guy is stressed out. He's stressed out, and guess what? You ask him for a coffee with soy milk, because maybe you're lactose intolerant, right? And then he's stressed out, and he puts regular milk in there, and it gives you that. Number one, it was late. Number two, it wasn't done right the first time. So, and there's poor qualities, not what you ordered. So, if we're able to understand these things, I understand the role that we play as procurement professionals for assuring that we're supporting our operations and we're protecting our organizations from risk. We have the necessary contracts in place to mitigate. We have the necessary remedies against suppliers who are not conforming, and hopefully we don't have to leverage those remedies because we selected the right suppliers up front in the first place, because we had a robust supplier selection criteria, and we manage our suppliers. You cannot manage something if you don't measure it. So we have the necessary robust performance management criteria for our suppliers, and we hold them accountable. So part of we share and we articulate that our purpose and our vision with our suppliers, and we align our procurement function with their vision and mission and objectives. If they're not aligned, then that's a flag, right? We go in west and they go in north, right? So we make sure that there's an alignment, and the interests are mutual. We don't beat them up, and we collaborate with them, and we go downstream, right, to our logistics process, our manufacturing, our conversion processes, and we go downstream to our customers to really understand, are there any shifts in your taste, any potential shifts? And this way we would get a better understanding of what we call the typical forecasting nightmare, the balance between demand and supply dynamics. We get a better understanding with them if we ask them. We build that relationship. So this is all about, you want to create value for your organizations, my friends, my dear procurement professionals. Build relationships, upstream, downstream, continuously be aware and have that degree of visibility. So methodologies that we looked at, the methodologies like blockchain, that brings that degree, a high degree of visibility as to what's happening in the supply chain. This is poised, in my opinion, to be a game changer. And we have the artificial intelligence, and we have the big data analytics. All of these things in terms of, these are the disruptive technologies that could really help us create value for organizations. So the thing is to have an open mind, to be innovative. And I mentioned about transformation and the 6 critical levers of transformation and change. Having a shared and articulated vision. There's alignment with all key stakeholders in the environment, and we understand and we scan and we care about their interests, be they our suppliers, be there other functions in our organizations, be there our customers, that we understand their interests and we articulate and we share our vision as a procurement function. And we are sure that we have this necessary skills on board, and we have the right people. So we have the right people who are aligned with our vision as leaders and our values as leaders in the procurement function. So we have the right people. And we assure that those right people have the right skills. And then we give them, we ensure as procurement leaders that the right people with the right skills have the right technology to execute their functions. They have the right process. Because what good does it do to us that we articulate our vision and our purpose and our core values very clearly to the right people, and we train them? We guarantee that they have the skill sets to execute their functions. And guess what? We drop the ball by giving them a broken process, a broken technology. What do we think is going to happen over time? Inertia. Those people, that's another form of waste, right? Remember I said the 8 wastes: unnecessary transportation, unnecessary motion, unnecessary inventories that could build up if we don't collaborate upstream and downstream, and we don't balance supply-demand mechanics. And if we have suppliers and we allow them to ship the wrong quantities and they send us excessive stuff that we didn't order because they made a mistake, and now you have a buildup of inventory, and we don't communicate to our other processes, we don't communicate with the R&D function, we don't communicate with the production function, and we don't communicate with the sales function, right? So now we have what you call the bullwhip effect, a buildup of inventories. So unnecessary transportation, unnecessary motion, inventories, defects. Our procurement function generates defects. We generate the wrong POs with the wrong quantity, late POs, right? Our inventory management function is broken. And then our suppliers are broken. What do we expect in terms of the total cost of ownership? So this SIPOC here is something that I generated, and I urge you all to leverage something like this. If you need a copy of this tool, let me know so you could really understand the value-adding steps in your processes, in the entire organization, process by process, and how one process affects the other process. If we have this understanding and this capability as procurement professionals, we'll be better poised to create value and to support the value-creating processes, because we'll be able to see and analyze the constraints and the bottlenecks that exist in our environments. And we'll be able to understand the dynamics and the interaction between input variables and process variables. And if you want to change the output, you change the inputs, or you change the process variables, or you change both. But to be able to document and analyze things and have this understanding of our space and our supply chain is very important as procurement professionals, to give us a better capability to make that strategic linkage between the procurement processes and all of the other processes. So as far as the third part of the procurement mandate, and I know I'm over time. As far as but I see most of you all are there, so I thank you very much for being there. I trust that I'm engaging you tremendously, and that is a good thing. So in terms of the third part of the procurement function mandate, which is to protect our organizations from risk, this here is a very, very, very powerful tool that we can leverage. It is called failure mode and effect analysis. And failure mode and effect analysis is underpinned by what we call the risk priority number. So I helped one of our SPSMs a few months ago deploy this methodology at her workplace. And she, when she looked at this and she started thinking, she was like, oh my God. This happens a lot. This is the impact of so-and-so. And she was very, very, very grateful for this tool. As a matter of fact, I did another webinar on managing risk in the supply chain. But in terms of this failure mode and effect analysis, that is underpinned by what we call the risk priority number. So we look at our processes, we look at our products, we could look at on different levels. You could look at it on the process level, right, in terms of for example, the procurement process itself, or we could look at the manufacturing process itself. We could look at our supplier selection processes. We could look at the whole end-to-end value stream or value chain, right? And we could examine the processes and the products as well. So you could do it at a process level, you could do it at a product level, you could do it on a people's level. Okay? We look for what are the process steps, or what are the items, or what are the products, and we think through, as we see the second column here from the left, what are the potential failure modes? As they say, you know, Murphy's Law, what could go wrong will go wrong, right? So we think through, right? If there's a failure, how do we define those failures? Then we answer the question on what is the potential impact of that failure? And then we look at what are the potential causes? What are causing those failures in our environments? And then we have to answer this fundamental question right here. What are the current controls? So in terms of this particular MRP, materials requirement process, okay, we see here the input of information into the MRP system. The potential failure mode is the incorrect MRP output. And we look at the potential failure modes, right? Oh, sorry, the impacts of those failures. Excessive raw materials, too little raw materials purchased to support the MPS, the master production schedule, supporting operations, right? Potential causes, damaged cell in Microsoft Excel, or typo. What are the current controls? This process had none. What is the severity? So the risk priority number is underpinned by the formula for the RPN, or risk priority number, is severity times occurrence times the ability to detect. So severity times occurrence times detection. So on a scale of 1 to 10. So in terms of this process here, the severity, the impact to the business and the customers, the impact to the customers first, and the impact to the business is 10 if this happens. What is the occurrence in this particular process? Oh, it happens all of the time. This failure mode happens all the time. And what is the ability to detect that the process or the product would fail? There's no way to detect it. It just happens like this. So this will score 10. So the maximum risk priority number, my friends, is 1,000. And if you see you have a risk priority number in your environments of 1,000, it's screaming, help me. You have to fix this. You have to fix this now. And then we look at the second item, which is the picking operations process. And we see here potential failure mode. It would be the wrong items picked. And then the impact of the failure, customer dissatisfaction is never good. Inventory discrepancy and recount and rework. And then we see here the potential causes and the current controls. So this situation here, the severity is 8. The occurrence is not to the same magnitude as the prior item, so it's a 7. And the ability to detect, right, is similar to the first process, it's a 10. So this risk priority number is 560. So it is not as bad as the first one. So this, the whole idea of the failure mode and effect analysis, it allows us to prioritize the risk elements that exist in our environments. And we see here in this column here, the necessary actions to be taken and who is responsible. So risk priority number, severity times occurrence time detection. Very important. This here is another critical caveat, and it's based on a framework, a systems thinking model, systems thinking framework to bring what we call disruptive change and the execution of disruptive change in our environments. So the whole idea is in the procurement function and in our organizations, we must, as procurement professionals, if we want to bring the ultimate value to our organizations, is to contribute to a culture of disruptive innovation. And if we want to do that, we focus on 9 critical areas. We start with our articulated and shared vision, as I mentioned before, mission and purpose, and core values, and a continuous improvement mindset. We ensure that we have the right people. We ensure that the processes, the materials that we procure are world-class and the technology is world-class. We assure that the right skills exist, and next level purchasing has what we call the PASS program, where we could go into an organization and we look at their procurement team, and they would take an assessment based on the critical criteria of the procurement function, and it would give them a report as to the skills gaps per buyer, and we would come up with the necessary courses that they could take or the necessary solutions to close those gaps. So we have to be sure to ensure that we make sure that the right people have the right skills. And we have a robust rewards and recognition program, and to make sure that the environment where we work and where our people work, if we are the leaders of the procurement function, we make sure that our people are engaged and they have an efficient, ergonomic workspace, that the physical environment. So we transform our cultures, we transform our environments, our cultural environment, we transform the physical environment. We make sure that our procurement department is set up for success. There are methodologies such as 5S, in which you organize organize the workspace so the procurement process is as efficient as possible and very ergonomic. Very important. If you put the right people with the right skills, the right technology, and you give them a comfortable environment to work with, you're going to get results. Okay? And then we make sure we have the right metrics. We balance in the total cost of ownership. We're not just looking at the price. There's one metric a lot of us look at, the price. How much savings we got that we supposedly realize. So we make sure that we have the right metrics and the balanced metrics. So what I mean by balanced metrics, okay, so you have we have a certain price point year on year that's lower than the previous year. Okay, so let's say we realized $1 million in savings that we contracted, right? However, due to inefficiencies in the procurement function, due to inefficiencies in the supplier processes and late deliveries or defective deliveries, we did an assessment of the cost impact and realized, hey, it's $300,000 in terms of late deliveries, defects, or the procurement function. If the procurement function is broken itself, we shrink, we order too much, and if we operate in certain environments like food, and you have perishable items, okay, so the procurement process was not efficient enough to order the right quantities that wouldn't realize a high degree of shrink, and you add all of this together now, and you realize it's like $300,000. So that $1 million in savings, you have to minus $300,000 from it. So now the net procurement savings is $700,000. And this could be realized as what we call a total cost of ownership. So our processes are balanced. How many times, I've seen, for example, I've seen production managers, they push their people to get things done quickly, right? Got to get them out, no overtime, right? Push, and then they make defects. So in one case on the payroll, and the line item for payroll, it went down, right? But the defects went up, right? So this is what I mean by balanced. So you want quick work, but you want it efficiently. So efficiency and quick. So you have the what we call the balancing measures, and we make sure that each measure has a balancing measure. So we're not, solely focusing on one measure at the expense of something else. Okay, and then we hold each other accountable and we manage risk. This entire framework is underpinned by risk management. So these are what we call the 9 critical dimensions, of disruptive transformation. And this is all based on understanding all of the variables, input variables and process variables in this whole architecture that you see in front of you. Understanding those variables and leveraging them so you get the right outputs, which is products and services delivered to customers at the right time, meeting their requirements and meeting the customer service specifications all of the time. That's the output. That's why we're here, to enable that and to realize that. So this is a critical caveat here that I wanted to share with you, and I hope you all enjoy it. And we're getting close to the end. We as procurement professionals must ensure strategic alignment, that our procurement function does not exist in a silo. We have to assure that we understand our corporate mandate. We understand, we do our due diligence, and we understand our organization, that we understand the business landscape and the environment in which our organization exists. Again, we go back to the beginning. We understand the socio-demographic factors. We understand the mega trends of urbanization, etc. We understand the economic environment in which our organizations operate and exist. We understand the political trends that underpin the environments in which our organizations exist. We understand the technological shifts, the shifts of the customer mindset. Okay, we understand the competitive forces, what are our competitors up to. We do our due diligence. Remember the buy-in plan. We assess the market, we assess the industry. How is the industry moving? Is there some type of disruption in terms of supply of raw materials? So we understand this overall underpinning of the organization. And we understand our corporate mandate. And if you look at this system here, we see here, this is the situation in which this particular organization exists. And here we see the corporate mission. It's right here, to improve the responsiveness of customer door makers by providing hinges with a 2-day turnaround time. And here we see, in order to realize this, the corporate mission, we see here 3 distinct initiatives. 3 distinct initiatives. Okay? And one of them is to increase productivity by attracting and retaining top talent. Another one is to increase revenue streams by enabling current customers and attracting new ones. And then we see the one on top, number 1, right, is to assure XYZ, that's the name of the company, XYZ Hinge Corporation's customer satisfaction. Assure customer satisfaction by continually delivering high quality hinges within a 2-day turnaround time. Within 2 days or receipt of order. And who's responsible for this? Jason, the procurement and warehouse operations manager. And we see here the metrics, remember I mentioned that Jason will be held accountable for right here. So in this one here is the procurement function. And then if we take Jason's mandate, right here, you see the mandate for this particular organization. We see here the procurement and warehouse department mission. So do you have for your departments, do you have a mission that is aligned symmetrically with your corporate mission in this format or something similar? So you see here, you take 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. These are the people that report to Jason. And we see all of his direct reports. You see 1.1, the senior buyer. What is the mandate of that buyer? What is their mission? Why are they there? To do what? Source materials for the manufacture of products, assure no stockouts of raw materials. So we give them a goal and a mandate. Who's responsible? Sherry, the senior buyer, is responsible. What are her performance metrics? You see, right here. Okay, so the metrics of the procurement function are aligned in terms of the employer and the employee level are aligned with those of the manager, and those of the manager, Jason, are aligned with the corporate mission. So to make sure that we cascade our metrics and not just have arbitrary metrics, to make sure that they're aligned. And in other words, if Jason and his folks deliver on their deliverables and they meet their targets, they will be enabling the other functions to realize their mandates and their missions. And in the total scheme of things is that the organization will realize its mission. So I know I'm over time, but I'm leaving the floor open to any Q&A. If you have any questions, if you could send me a message in the chat box, I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. And I hope that you all enjoyed today's webinar and you found it of good quality. That's very, very important to us at NLPA. And so if you have any questions, just send me a message in the chat box. I'll deeply appreciate it. You're welcome. You're welcome, Ovidu. You're welcome. Does anybody have any questions? If you all need any type of coaching with as far as these tools are concerned, just let me know. Or shoot me an email. You're welcome. You're welcome. Anybody else has any questions? If anybody would like the slides or the tools, just let me know. Or my email, I'm going to type it in right here, my friend, is dmillington, INGTON, at nextlevelpurchasing.com. My phone number is 860 directly 994-8193. If you all need any type of coaching, just let me know. This is what we do. We're very passionate about seeing you all succeed in your job functions. And go out there and innovate. Innovate as it relates to managing spend, supporting operations, and protecting the organizations from risk. Create that culture, create a pocket of excellence in the procurement function. Anybody else needs anything? Who has any questions? No questions. It was that thorough. You're welcome. Is that Paul? You're welcome, Paul. Oh, I'm happy that you're interested in the tools. Good. They're very, very, I would say, simple, easy to implement, but robust in impact and output. Very, very robust, very intense stuff. Yes, I have a webinar next week. I have webinars every week. Every week I have webinars. Please, come. And some of the courses that so a lot of this material is underpinned by, you would find them in improving quality in the supply chain, the 14 purchasing best practices, another one, executing a global sourcing strategy. You would find a lot of these tools that we go deep into the dynamics and the usage of these tools. So those are some very, very awesome courses. The improving quality in the supply chain, executing global sourcing strategy, and the 14 purchasing best practices. These are some very, very powerful courses. And at NLPA, we focus a lot on what to do and how to do it. So this is why, I delivered this webinar this way with the tools. I tell you how to do certain things and give you the mechanisms and how to do it. And simple. It's not everything is rocket science. These tools have been tested over the years. You look at some of the major companies, Toyota, etc. They use failure mode and effect analysis, for example. Oh, thank you. I'm happy you can't wait for the next webinar. Who is that? Ken? Oh, sure, Ken. Come every week when I have the webinars. Thank you, Aaron. Nice to have you. Very nice to have you all. So it's an honor and a pleasure to be here. We're supposed to be 30 minutes, but I really enjoyed engaging you and being here for you. Oh, it was worth the extra time, Ken. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Again, if you need any coaching, it's just pick up the phone. We're not going to charge you for that. Pick up the phone and pick the little brains that I have, and feel free, sure, and collaborate. We colleagues, we peers. I'm here to help, and I'm sure I'll learn a lot from you as well. So, pick up the phone or shoot me an email. It's not a problem. I could help you translate a lot of these things into your environments and sort of give you advice and coaching. So I'm going to stay on for a few more minutes because I have I see my students here. Usually I like to be the last one to leave, but I have to catch a plane in a little bit, so I'll be leaving in a few more minutes. But I usually like to collaborate and interact with my dear attendees and students at the end of the webinar. So I'm here. If you have any questions, I'm here. I'm here for you. Yes, and feel free to please. Our website is full of content. There are a lot of articles and blogs, case studies, and templates that you all could benefit from. And again, if you have any questions in terms of how to leverage those, just shoot me an email or give me a call. And the SPSM program is an awesome, awesome, awesome program. I'm very, very happy that I did all of the levels so far. I'm SPSM 3. Again, thank you all for attending today's webinar. I'm going to stop the recording. It was a pleasure and indeed an honor to deliver this webinar to you. Thank you.